I'm on top of both. Got it.
There we go. Then we can find just the right moment when we're both
Perfect. Perfect.
not that far apart in age. I'm 42. I don't quite meet the millennial mark.
Oh my gosh, you look like you're like 30. That's what I was thinking you were.
So I don't drink. That's a big part of it. I haven't drank in years. So
That's good. That's so good. I took a year off, and to be honest with you, Jesse, like I got peer pressured more than like a teenager would.
really, wow.
And I couldn't figure it out. Like I really couldn't like
I just, I've gotten very comfortable with it, and that's just kind of how people know me now. And like I'm part, this will come up a lot in our conversations, but I'm very, very involved in the dance community, and I don't. So I'm out in bars 4 or 5 days a week, and I don't drink, and it never isn't like I don't people have known me for months, and then like I'll say something about it, and they're like, wait, what, you don't drink? And I'm like, no, I I don't drink. And they're just like they're blown away by it because it's just because I don't have any discomfort with it at all personally, you know what I mean? And so
right, right, because their whole circle
yeah.
struggles.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, people are really uncomfortable with change. And even if it has nothing to do with them, it's interesting. I was working with a client on Monday, and I've been, transparent about this stuff and like the stuff that we're doing and the excitement around that. And and I've got stuff going on with Dr. Glover where things are getting big and there's all this energy around it. And I was just like, I have this feeling that you're not happy about these wins that I'm getting. And I'm curious about that. And I'm okay with it, but I'm curious as to what that's about.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's this thing that I know, and it's changing, and I don't know what to do with these feelings, and I don't know what to do with the change, and I don't know how to feel about it, but I do feel something about it. And it's like, it's not that I'm unhappy for you, it's not that I'm not excited for you, it's just that this thing that I have always known to be a certain way, to be consistent, is now changing. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting.
I think that uh, I believe that the most success comes from lack of rigidity and being very open to change. I think that, when people are so stuck in their ways with dating or anything like that, like
Yep.
it's really hard. It's very difficult. And people really don't like people are very routined, and I subscribe to routine to a certain point, but when I'm listening to my law of attraction and meditation and manifesting and all those things, really you shouldn't be routined at all.
Right.
You like need to change it up all the time because you're throwing your energy off and getting in different spheres of pockets of energy, and if you're staying the same, you're going to stay the same.
Right. Well, and the thing is too is that it's so easy to check out when you're in a routine. It's like, I try to take different routes, even just leaving my
Yes.
house. Go left or I can go right. And it's like I make a decision once I get there, like which way that I'm going to go. And they're both about the same time, so it's, you know what I mean. But it's like it's so easy to check out and get into our heads and be
Yes, yes.
what's going on around us.
Not be present.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, with
Yeah.
extended route, that's one of the things I challenge my guys to do. Get out of your
That's
house.
so good. Very good. So good. So good. It on first dates, people do it all the time. I'm like, I challenge people so often to like just look at their date and like savor the drink and feel the water, dripping down on their fingers. Like they'll literally stay so present because women are very guilty of it. Like I wonder if my friends are gonna like him. I wonder if he's gonna ask me out. Like all these questions and like not even paying attention to the conversation at hand. So funny. And I'm like, if you actually look at a person and pay attention, you're exuding like the energy. Even if it's not like there's no chemistry there, like you completely play on things. Like as you know, you can trick your mind.
Yeah.
So I try to get them to trick their mind because that energy is going to show up completely different.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought of it, but it's a really good question for both men and women. Like in the post date, like what were they wearing?
Yeah, right? Right? Boom, exactly. And they have no idea. What color eyes do they have?
Did she have earrings?
Huh? Yeah, right, right, right.
What was she wearing? A necklace?
Yep.
Did have a watch? Was it
Yeah,
jewelry?
right. Do you remember her name?
I mean, and this is the thing is we're just not, I mean, I was in a relationship with a woman. This is part of my story for 5 years that I didn't even like. And I mean, I can't tell you to this day what her birthday or favorite color was. And I lived with this woman for 5 years. And and it's like it's so completely checked out and unconscious and just going with the routine and all of that stuff. And it's just like we all do it, and it's interesting.
What happened? How did you finally get out of that relationship?
I mean, I burned it to the ground. I was in college at the time. I was in my senior year of school, and I went out to a dude ranch in Wyoming to do my senior internship, and kind of picked that because I knew that it would get me away from her, and didn't really know how to extricate myself from the situation, and then ended up cheating on her with a girl that I was worked with out at the ranch, and moved her in and like house for the summer, and then my girlfriend at the time in Denver found out about it. And, yeah, ended up with my dog and all my money.
Oh my gosh. Crazy. Well, at
And,
least it wasn't marriage and children, that's
yeah,
but
yeah,
it's so interesting what people we can settle with
right.
and what people are comfortable with. There's not that I don't believe yet. I'm hoping that it's going to be bigger, but there's going to be a bigger population that's going to move to better their lives.
Hey, hey! Come on, go, come on.
You didn't like that answer.
Honey, you too. Well, sorry, my children are.
Your child didn't like that one. Stay put. No, I mean it's just people are very comfortable in life.
Yeah, and they're very willing to settle and be in loveless relationships and all of that stuff out of the scarcity mindset and the fear of being alone.
Yes.
And I could, oh yeah. And
Yeah.
what would it mean about me if I wasn't in a relationship? If I didn't have somebody, what would that mean about me? How would people perceive me? All of
Right.
that.
Right. So crazy. I just, yeah, I wish I could shake some people, but you don't know what you don't know yet, right? So,
For sure. And, I just told you part of my story, and it's like there was no possible way that I would ever be in that position today. But at a point in time, it made perfect sense. It was just like, it made sense that this is what I was doing. And it's just, yeah. And you don't know until you know. And a lot of times it takes a stick up against, a big stick to wake you up, to bottom out. So never
yeah.
again.
Yeah.
And all of that
So
stuff.
do you feel like your clients, your guys that you work with have had that some sort of self-realization or some sort of,
Mhm. What I find is that the work is not effective if they haven't, um, and that they're not really going to take a look at a lot of this stuff unless there's something that consistently is happening for them to go, I'm tired, I'm done, And so, yeah, there is typically, like any type of self-development or recovery work or something, there is typically, and on almost every single guy, it's with relationships. You know, all the guys that I work with, specifically in my own story, was that like, it doesn't make any sense. It's kind of like, you know, and I have so much to say about that video that you sent me.
Oh my God, let's get into it. It was so juicy. Like I was like, this is it. This is the thing.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the first part of it is, and you know, I went and I looked at some of her other videos, and the video that she posted after this, it affirms what I'm saying, or what my thought on it is that the man that she's describing in that video, unfortunately, will never be lonely.
Correct.
He is going to exude the primary attractive quality to women, which is confidence. That guy is never going to feel inadequate. He's never going to feel insecure. And as long as he can display confidence, he will not be lonely. And even though it's in a very toxic way and it's coming from a toxic place, the narcissist, unfortunately, I would love it if what she was saying was accurate and that women were done with that. But her next video is talking about would she ever approach her ex's current girlfriend. And it's like, okay, that just validates my point. Your ex is not lonely. The narcissists are not lonely. The toxic men are not lonely. And it's this other subset of guys that, you know, that lack confidence, even though they probably have. It's the guys that would never think about being the guy that she's describing in that video. Those are the guys that are lonely.
Yes. Yes.
And the guys that I work with in my story was, it didn't make any sense because I was everything that women were saying that they wanted. I was accommodating. I was self-sacrificing. I was, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? I was fully focused around meeting and predicting the needs of my partner, and not oppressive, not, you know, all of those things. And yet, even though I was, by definition, in fact, a lot of my exes would tell you, like, it didn't make any sense. I was the perfect guy. Like, why I wasn't, you know, why the relationships continued to end. And so, you know, a lot of my guys that I work with, that's the thing that happens that brings them into work, into getting personal development, is that I consistently am showing up as the guy that women are telling me that they want. And yet I cannot find success in relationships. And what I see is all of these, what are being called toxic and abusive men, right? Why is it that a guy who beats his girlfriend, she can't seem to leave him? And yet I am being nurturing and supportive and, in my perception, loving, and yet everybody leaves me. And why does this consistently happen?
Yeah.
And all of that. So that's typically what brings guys into the work that I do, is that they are nice guys. They're everything that women are telling them that they want in a man.
Right.
And the problem is that they're being raised by women that are telling them this is what we want them to be, essentially. Don't be like men.
So they're being raised by women, and women are telling them what they're supposed to be like, but therefore they are in their feminine.
Correct.
I mean,
well, that's part of it. Yeah, for sure. They're not ever being, and they're not told that what they're hearing is, every time that you hear the phrase masculinity, or that the conversation is about men, that it's a negative conversation, right? And so they're not presented with this idea that there is positive expressions of masculine qualities. Nobody's telling them that. What they're telling them is masculinity is bad. And so inherently, you know, then they're like, and they make great friends for girls.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But
sure.
I mean, one of the things that I tell my guys all the time is like, stop being friends with women. You're just perpetuating the problem. She's coming and getting all of these healthy parts of the masculine from you. It's just so that she can go and get screwed by the toxic guy who's polarizing her and turning her on.
Okay, I think I have a client that verbatim said that to someone, didn't he? He
Yeah,
did. He literally verbatim said, "Nope, I don't need any more friends."
yep, yeah, yeah. And I mean, and and not only that, there's several other reasons why, because a lot of these guys are what they call orbiters, and they're just kind of waiting around, hoping that this friend of theirs is going to finally realize what a great guy he is.
Right. Yeah.
But and I call them Tinkerbells. They're beautiful, they're magical, they're charming, they make you feel amazing, and they're completely unavailable to you.
Yes.
As long as you've got Tinkerbells hanging around, Wendy is never going to come.
Yes. Yes. 'Cause, I mean, you're, and the part of it, and it's still, it's going to exist for forever, for it's existed forever. It's that chase, that challenge, that validation part that is a whole dynamic in a relationship. It's this dance, as you know, right? Like you have to have it.
Yes. Yes. Some yes. And yes. And yes, absolutely. There has to be the dance. And that's one of the reasons why I love dancing and being in the dance community so much, is because it's this very obvious expression of masculine, feminine
Yes.
energy, and the
Yes.
everybody's playing their roles. And when you don't, it's very obvious why it doesn't look good. It's not pretty. And there's all of these nuances in there. There's all of these analogies where it's like when a guy's controlling, when he's yanking a girl around the dance floor, it doesn't look good. She's not having a good time. He looks like an idiot, and
Yes.
it doesn't look good. However, when he's leading, and it's I'm implying, I'm
Yes.
gently, firmly implying that this is what I would like us to do next. You
Yes.
have an option to not do that. I'm not forcing you to do that. I'm giving you a suggestion of this is where I would like to go next. And she can say, no, I want to do this, and throw a little bit of flair in there. And it's like, okay, I'm good with that. That looks good. You know what I'm saying? But
Right.
it looks good when everybody is, and it's beautiful, and it catches your attention. And it's the same thing like in relationships where it's like there's this, yeah. And whenever and both men and women, when we hear leading, what we hear is control. And it's like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. Somebody has to be the leader. Somebody has to be the follower. Somebody has to be the.
Yes. Preach. Honest to God, like you have to. It's not a bad thing to be a follower at
Oh,
all.
right. And if you see a woman
I'm a
who,
leader without a follower. Like it's like,
right, and you can see when a woman is being led well, that she is in her full feminine expression and feels beautiful. And it's like, it's my job to say where we're going and give you safety and protection. So my job is to make you feel beautiful, safe, and protected,
yes,
right? So that you can fully express your feminine beauty. And I am doing this so that I can show you off. I'm
yes,
doing so that this is about you. This is about expressing your beauty and all of that stuff. And I'm doing this to accommodate you, and so that you can be fully expressive in your feminine beauty and look beautiful and sexy and all of those things, and not have to worry about where we're going. That's my job. I got that.
like where did it go askew? Like where did we go wrong? Like was it parenting? Was it like was it the millennials? Like the boys didn't really have a role anymore. I mean,
There's
I
a big
really do think that gender roles.
Yeah, there's a big part of that. So in my mentor's work, he talks about that. He talks. This is a lot of this is a byproduct of the feminist movement, right?
Mhm.
And that was, and we can't throw out the baby with the bathwater, right? There was something that needed to change socially in regards to women and their roles in society, right? And that's 100% true, and it's good and it's beneficial, and we as a society benefit when we have strong, intelligent, capable women leading in certain in areas. We need that. We need the feminine wisdom just as much as we need the masculine. However, just like we can't throw out the baby with the bathwater. We cannot completely get rid of these gender roles in intimate relationships, right? And so, to that woman's point, like, women have been stepping up their game. Where men have dropped the ball on some level is not recognizing that because we have women who are spending all day in their masculine, I need to be a very grounded, confident, secure man, so that when she comes home and she's with me, she feels safe enough to step back into that feminine frame.
Yes.
And
Yes.
my job, it's partly her job to be able to be receptive to that and to be able to drop that guard and to feel and so part of it is the feminist movement, and this is a byproduct of that. The pendulum went too far in the other direction, and so now relationships are all skewed. And the feminist movement came out of the fact that of these toxic expressions of masculinity. So it was like we were on one end of the spectrum, now we've gone too far in the other end of the spectrum, and so that's why. I mean, I was at a men's meeting, a men's group last night, and there was 30 very masculine, conscious men in that group, and we were the topic of conversation was intimacy. Like, men are catching on, and they're getting it. They're realizing that this is the problem, and that they're responsible for their experience. And so we have to, we can't blame women and expect them to change, but we're going to have to do something about ourselves to figure out how do we level up, right? And so that's where we're at right now is men are leveling up on it in an emotional, spiritual, energetic way, but we're kind of behind the game. So that's one part of it, is that there's not enough of these men out there, and too many women have never had even an interaction with a positive masculine man. They don't know what that means. And so for them, masculinity is toxic because they've only been abused. They've only been controlled. They've only been dominated. They haven't been led with love and
safety and security.
Right. So that's part of it. The other part of it is kind of what we talked about, is that after the industrial age, essentially, little boys started being raised by women, and then they go into a school system that is predominantly women, and so they learn from very early on that the way that they're going to get their needs met and to get the attention and the love and affection that they desire, that they're going to have to learn how to make a woman happy. And so that's part of the problem. And the other part of the problem is that traditionally, throughout human history, what has happened is at some point in time, usually around 10 to 12, 13 years old, boys were taken away from their mothers and they were brought into the masculine part of the community and the society, and they were shown. So this is like I think a really good way to articulate this. My mentor, Dr. Glover, he says that we as a society think that the feminine is the source of love, and you read literature about it and all of that stuff, and he says, but love is intention and it's action, and those are masculine traits. And then when he kind of brought this is a new concept that he's kind of playing around with, and I said, you know what, I think I know what a part of the big problem is. And that is that for most people, and men especially, our first experience with the source of love is our mothers, right?
Yeah.
The problem with that is, regardless of the gender of the child, when a mother is mothering her child, she is in the masculine and the child is in the feminine, right? I mean, we talk about mama bear and like all of this stuff, right? You can see it, right? They will fight and they will die to protect their children. They're protecting them. They're nurturing them. They're doing all of these masculine things, and that's not a bad thing. It's good. It's beautiful. However, what doesn't happen in our current society is nobody comes and takes those little boys away from their mothers and shows them what masculine love means, and it looks different. Masculine love looks different than feminine love, right? And so and to the woman's point in the video, what a lot of men do is then they continue to try to find that nurturing relationship from a woman in order to get the love, rather than understanding that they're supposed to be the source of love and protection and all of that stuff. And they continue to try to recreate that relationship that they had with their mothers. But the problem is that their mom was the leader.
Yeah.
They're trying to create this. So that's what the men's work is all about, is we are creating a space to harvest and manifest and create this masculine love, so that our bucket is overflowing with, because I am finding all of the ways to get my needs met. I don't need anything from you. In fact, I don't need anything from you so much that I'm overflowing, so that I can fill your bucket as well, right? So
yes,
there's a lot of reasons why this has kind of gone, why this is out of alignment. And those are just to name a few. I mean, and then also, the other problem with it is a lot of guys, most men, I mean, I think the biggest sector of victims from toxic masculinity have been men. I mean, and so men don't trust men, and men don't feel comfortable around men, and they don't understand that it's a good thing to be a man and to have masculine qualities and to play that role as the man. And so that's another part of what we're addressing, is understanding that it's safe, that men are safe, that men can be loving, that they can be nurturing, and all of those types of things. So
absolutely.
This is
absolutely.
So you want to
love it. I was going to play you a clip from Candace Owens. Do you know Candace Owens at all? Candace Owens is, I think she should be president, but she's just as amazing. But she just did a little panel about toxic feminism.
Is she the lady who's like always sitting in a throne?
No. Here's.
I started following some lady.
Identify as yourself as a toxic feminist.
The fact that you're a woman is completely irrelevant to me.
But maybe it's irrelevant to men as well when they interrupt people. What exactly you've seen when you said that is an example of toxic masculinity.
Men feeling that they need to dominate spaces physically and speaking over women.
Were you a toxic feminist when you interrupted me when I was on stage?
No, I was interrupting.
I'm just asking, because you're saying that somebody interrupting someone is now a symbol of toxic masculinity. You just interrupted me on stage, so are you a toxic feminist?
I wasn't interrupting you because I didn't.
You went, bull!
I didn't interrupt you because you're a woman. I interrupted you because I didn't believe what you were saying.
Like, do you get what I'm saying? Is that you're coming up with terms, and sometimes people just interrupt. I'm fine with the fact that you interrupted me. It happens all the time, and I'm not holding that against you. I'm just using it to prove a point that you created an entire concept around when men interrupt women, but you literally just interrupted me, and you don't identify as yourself as a toxic feminist.
The fact that you're a woman is completely irrelevant to me.
But maybe it's irrelevant to men as well when they interrupt people. What exactly you've seen when you said that is an example of toxic masculinity.
Men feeling.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, no, and that's exactly it. And that's another thing too. And it's funny too, because what I'm seeing a lot of is with the feminists and stuff like that, they're saying men are bad, men are toxic, masculinity is toxic, so let's be more like them. Like,
right?
They're saying all of these things are bad. And the message that I'm seeing is, it's our turn. It's our turn to be toxic. It's our turn to run things. It's our turn to dominate you. It's our turn. And it's like, that's not so, and it's almost like, it's kind of like the woman's video that you sent me. It's almost as though she's celebrating the fact that there are lonely men out there.
Right. And, like, boom. It's,
right.
And there's so many women that are now in relationships with women, but
right.
They don't realize that there's a masculine and a feminine in that whole thing too. I mean, it's.
Yes, exactly. Right. But they're at least getting the polarity. It's unfortunate that even though they don't want it, that they're having to take on the masculine role. But, I've had this conversation with my best friend's brother and his husband. And I think on some level that like gay couples understand this almost on a deeper level. When you explain to them, like one's got to be the top and one's got to be the bottom.
Yes.
Like we had this conversation like on our first date.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And no issue with the fact that like one is going to be the leader, one's going to be the follower. We're going to play our roles. And yeah, we can switch back and forth and have fun with all of that kind of stuff and all of that. But it's like, But by default, one person is the leader, one person is the follower, one person is the top, one person is the bottom. Neither is better than the other. It's like, which is better, a proton or a neutron?
Right.
Which is
right, exactly. And I don't, even with a male and female relationship, I don't care which one is which.
Sure.
You know, how you show up is how you show up, but realize you can't have both. And
Correct.
so that there is this fight and this power struggle right now of like, you know, these majorly alpha females trying to get a more alpha male, but it's this constant power struggle that's never ever going to be anything.
Right. And that's a very good point, because I have, you know, going back to the dance analogy, I'm not going to fight you for the lead. I've done this before on the dance floor. I've had a woman, you know, she was this woman, the middle-aged, like very, you know, you can tell that she's, you know, she's a jet setter and all of that. And she's out there dancing by herself. And I went and asked her to dance. And she was still, it was almost like physically painful, because she's like, she's not following where I'm trying to lead her. And I said, look, if you don't follow, or if you don't let me lead, we can't dance. And she goes, well, I'm not used to a man leading. And then she continued to try to dance. And I just said, you know what, have a great night. And I walked away from her on the dance floor. I'm not going to fight you for the lead, because I'll just go find a woman who does want to be led.
Yes. Yes.
Right? You don't,
yes.
And then it's not my problem that your feelings are hurt about that.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
But that's that power struggle, and you're exactly right. I think that there's a certain point, and there's a certain subset of women that are like feeling like they are in a loser position, or they're losing if they succumb a little bit, right? Like they have to stay in this power stance, and if they don't, then they're losing. They're like, you know, and it's not, that isn't what it is.
No.
And it's like a whole competition, just like the video. She's celebrating these guys, these lonely guys. That's not even a thing. Everybody's going to lose at this point.
Well, right. And my point to it too is kind of like, okay, so we typically are right around 50-50 as far as genders are concerned. You know, there's about as many men as there are women, right? And so if men are lonely and women are not, that means that there is a small subset of men who are in relationships with the majority of the women, right? And who are those women all being drawn to? And it's like they're all being drawn to those guys who are polarizing to them. And unfortunately, and this is why so many of these guys who have been trying to be nice and be good guys and be all of this stuff, that's right, these guys are going by busloads to pick up artists, conventions, and red pill and all of this other shit, is because they're recognizing that by being nice and by being the guy that women have been telling them their entire lives that they wanted them to be, it's not getting them success. And that by becoming polarizing to a woman, that they can at least get laid, right? It's not a good recipe for a long-term relationship, and it's not sustainable, right? And so rather than, but it's a quick fix, right? And so,
right.
And so, I'm kind of up to the same thing, but what I want to do is teach men how to become a confident man, confident with his masculine traits, so that he is naturally polarizing to a woman. Not that because he's trying to polarize her, but because he is just naturally polarizing to her. And
yes,
and turning right. That's why, and it's really comes down to one issue, and it's just a lack of confidence, and
we all know that guy that's like, I mean, honest to God, I had a friend back in the day. He was probably 5'3", bald, dad bod, but everyone flocked to him. Everyone. He had moxie like there's no tomorrow. Confidence that he just walked into the room and he's like owns it. Like,
yes,
it's truth that you don't have to look any sort of way. It's your energy that you're outputting.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
All about the energy.
Right. Men think that women are turned on by the same thing that we're turned on, which is physically, right? And yeah, I'm not painting with a broad brush here, right? Like obviously there's other traits that are attractive, but primarily we're physically attracted first.
Yes.
And so we spend all of this time like on our hair and in the gym and all of that stuff, and that stuff's important. But the primary thing, it's not what you're going to wear. It's not even what you're going to say. So, you can go out there and learn all the pickup lines you want all day long. But if you are not energetically confident, right, and that's what turns women on. That's what catches people's attention. And it's not even just women. It's your employer. It's your employees. It's your
room, right? Yes.
Everybody needs to be magnetic and draw that in. And that's what, so many of my guys, it's kind of hard for them to wrap their heads around it because like for me, like the dating is secondary. And for me, my personal work is on myself because ultimately what I want to do is I want to walk into a room and have people turn their head and go, who the fuck is that guy?
Yeah. Like what's his story, right? Like, but it very kind of, I don't know, interesting analogy is when these men, maybe these men that you're coaching are like having a hard time dating here because they are the nice guys. They're all, whatever. And then they switch focus and they go overseas, right? Ukraine, whatever. And all these women flock. And then all of a sudden their energy turns, their shift because they're so wanted, they're desired. And it doesn't matter if they're desired because of their money, they feel it. Like they're all like, they're magnetic.
Yep.
And they have that confidence. Like you just want to bottle it up and take it over here because they know it. They're like, oh yeah, she knows, she wants me. She wants me. Right? Like it shifts. It totally shifts. And it's just like, it doesn't have to.
Right. No, it doesn't. And that's
easy. Just like to turn that switch. Right. And to be magnetic.
Right.
It's just the traumas in your scripts that you replay in your head.
Dating of the operating system and the way that people perceive themselves in the world and all of that kind of stuff. And so it's and it takes work and it's the proof's in the pudding. Like,
well, Jesse, we're solving it. We're doing it one person at a time.
Right. Well, hopefully soon.
We're getting our message out there.
Massive, we can just get this message out there and get people thinking about it and talking about it.
And a lot there's many women that will disagree with me in being on this platform and on this side. However,
but I think
I'm not for everyone.
I think again that we're talking to the silent majority here. I don't think that this is, and I don't think that this is like, it's like one thing I used to tell, especially like the millennial generation. I told that, I used to tell guys like in their 20s when I was in my 30s, like, what the best thing about guys your age is how easy you make it for guys my age to date women your age. Right. Because like that subsector, that's why a lot of women, in their 20s and their 30s are dating guys in their 40s, 50s, and 60s is not only because they're, they have money and resources and stuff like that. It's because they have this old school masculinity that's like, and they've all, you know what I mean? And so they're actually turning them on. Whereas the guys that are their age are not, because they're growing up in this woke culture that tells them that it's bad to be a man.
1000%. In fact, as an example, so I consider myself a strong woman. I make money. I'm successful. I pay the bills. I do all the things, and I have a 19-year-old son who is getting into relationships, getting into women right now, and I will talk to him about holding the doors, paying the bills, all the things, and he's like, wait a minute, why? Because we are in a Me Too movement. Like, why isn't it 50-50? And I was like, ho, 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 ho. I mean, at 19, he's saying this.
Yep.
And he's looking at me, right? Like I am, I'm doing all the things, but like I need, I'm having to have him pivot, I make sure that he opens my doors. I make sure that, he's not asking me to, pay all of his bills. He's got to go out and fly and do it.
Yep. Yep. I encourage guys to do that too. Like do this with every woman in your life. Open the door, set the tone, take the lead, and start with the women that are already in your life and start there and all of that stuff. Well, I think, again, I think that we're kind of like a very palatable approach to this because you're right. You are a strong, confident woman, but you are also very obviously feminine at the same time. Right. And it is not black and white. It is not one end or the other. We can do this. We can let women be strong and be boss and kick ass and all of that stuff. We want it. We need more men that can hold that space, and we need more women like you that can do that and are still in touch with their feminine nature.
Oh yeah. Yes. Amen. So we'll keep doing what we're doing. We'll keep spreading the message, and it's gonna be heard. I truly believe that it will be well received, and I think it's gonna be well received in a timely manner. I think that some women, a lot of women and men are hungry for this conversation.
Yep. Right, and this is how you create a tidal wave of change, right?